was looking directly at William and Harry across her coffin as I delivered it. And that was very tough.
Charles Spencer took a day off his own honeymoon to sit across from Harry and Meghan. He reviewed their biggest project, and when he was done, he shut the gates of Althorp, pulled the archives, and walked away. Meghan was devastated. But why?
I'd been a broadcaster, so I knew how to speak, I thought, but it was very different to do that on behalf of my sister in front of 1.5 billion people, or whatever it was.
The story starts with one man, the man who holds the key. His name is Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer, and for nearly 30 years, he has been the single most important gatekeeper of his sister's real legacy. Althorp House has been in the Spencer family for over 500 years. It is a living, private fortress of family memory, and somewhere on its grounds, on a quiet island surrounded by trees Diana loved as a little girl, she is buried.
And then by the end, I was completely wrung out emotionally, and I couldn't breathe.
Charles Spencer decides who comes near that island. He decides who accesses the private archives. Most people remember him from the eulogy he delivered at Westminster Abbey on September 6, 1997. It remains one of the most watched funeral addresses of the modern era, partly because of how raw it was, and partly because of one specific moment. Standing at the pulpit with the royal family seated in front of him, he promised that Diana's blood family would ensure her sons were not raised with the cold rigidity of the monarchy. He said they would be raised with the soul and sensitivity their mother cherished, in public, in front of the world. For nearly 3 decades since, he has exercised that guardianship through restraint.
The important thing for me was the obvious reality that my sister wasn't around anymore, and I wanted to speak for her honestly.
He watched the documentaries, the dramatizations, the endless cycle of tributes that turned his sister's life into a permanent cultural event. He let most of it pass without comment, understanding that the moment he started reacting to everything, he would lose the standing to react to anything, which is precisely why 2026 matters. When Charles Spencer acts, the threshold has been crossed. His decision to meet with Harry and Meghan was considered, deliberate, and personal. The question worth sitting with is what exactly he found in that proposal that made him move. But why would they even need to make this proposal? That answer tells you everything. By early 2026, the Sussex operation was in serious, documented trouble on multiple fronts simultaneously. The Spotify deal had ended in a widely reported collapse, with executives allegedly describing the couple in terms that were not flattering. Their Netflix arrangement, once presented as a landmark creative partnership, had been quietly downgraded to a first-look agreement. A first-look deal means Netflix gets to see your ideas before anyone else does. It does not mean they believe in you. The lifestyle brand, originally launched as American Riviera Orchard and later repackaged as Ever, had hit a structural wall. Netflix had come on board as an equity partner during the relaunch, then pulled its investment entirely, leaving Meghan running the company. The television work told the same story in numbers. With Love, Meghan ranked 1,217th on Netflix in the second half of 2025. The show was virtually invisible on the platform it was made for. So the pressure going into 2026 was real. They needed something with guaranteed global reach. August 2017 offered an obvious answer. The 30th anniversary of Diana's death is a date the entire world will mark, regardless of what the Sussexes do or don't do. The question was whether they could place themselves in the center of it. That ambition is where the plan began to unravel. But here's where it gets interesting, because the tribute framing was just the wrapping paper. What was inside the box was something else entirely. The interior of the project was built around a specific and deliberate argument. According to insiders, the series aimed to draw a direct line between the challenges Diana faced inside the royal establishment in the 1990s and the challenges Meghan faces today. Meghan was not positioned as a supporting voice in Diana's story. She was the through line, framed as Diana's modern equivalent, a woman navigating the same hostile institution and the same hostile press that had once broken the most beloved royal of her generation. The comparison itself was not new. The Sussex public narrative had orbited Diana's story for years. The Oprah interview in 2021 echoed the structure of Diana's own 1995 Panorama interview so closely, the isolation, the institutional betrayal, that commentators noted it almost immediately. A formal series giving that parallel real depth and archival weight could have carried genuine credibility with the right backing. That backing required Charles Spencer. His involvement would have told the world that Diana's own blood family had reviewed the comparison being drawn and found it legitimate. The proposal reportedly sought access to Althorp House, to the confidential family archives. That kind of endorsement is worth more than any production budget. It is the one thing money cannot manufacture. When Charles Spencer reviewed the proposal and understood how Meghan was being positioned within it, an insider concluded the project was arguably more about Meghan than it was about Diana. Word is, Meghan wanted inside it, a 6,000-page classified investigative document sealed by court order until at least 2082. It contains hundreds of witness statements gathered in the immediate aftermath of the crash. It contains toxicology reports on driver Henry Paul. It contains photographs the public has never seen and, under the terms of the seal, is not intended to see for another 56 years. Meghan reportedly described this dossier as the hook the documentary needed. That specific word is worth pausing on. A sealed investigative file on the night Diana died, described internally as the hook for a streaming pitch. There was a second layer to how it was being framed. The same source indicated the dossier was also presented to Harry as an opportunity for personal closure, a chance for him to finally understand what happened the night his mother died. That framing is not cynical on its face. A son wanting answers about his mother's death is entirely human. The difficulty is that both things were operating at once. The documents as something deeply personal for Harry, and the documents as a commercial centerpiece for Netflix. Charles Spencer has lived with the weight of August 1997 for nearly 30 years. He knows what that night cost his family. When he sat down with the Netflix proposal and understood that sealed crash investigation files sealed until 2082, were being positioned as the anchor of a streaming documentary, one filtered through the lens of Meghan's public narrative, he left his honeymoon. But what he did next says more than any statement ever could. Charles Spencer had recently married Kat Jarman. They were on their honeymoon in Sedona, Arizona, when he made the decision to go and meet them in person. He did not send a representative. He did not arrange a call for a future date. That specific choice to do it in person on his own time during what should have been a private trip is its own statement. As one insider put it, Charles was the only one who still had time for his nephew, the only one who could maybe talk Meghan down. The phrasing is worth reading carefully. The only one who still has time for his nephew. At a moment when Harry is estranged from his father, increasingly distant from his brother, and separated from the institution he grew up inside, his mother's brother was described as the one person in his life with both the relationship and the standing to walk into that room and say what needed to be said. His verdict on the proposal was clear. He found it more about Meghan than Diana, and he was insulted by the framing. He did not ask for revisions. The gates of Althorp may now be closed, and the archives with them. According to insiders, he may have gone further still, potentially cutting them out of the estate entirely, not just for this project, but going forward. Meghan is said to be devastated and deeply hurt. A business rejection can be renegotiated. A family verdict of this kind is a different matter. But if you think this hurts Meghan, imagine what it does to Harry, because Meghan lost a project. Harry just lost something he cannot replace. He is estranged from his father. His relationship with William has been one of the most publicly documented family ruptures in recent memory. He occupies a strange position in 2026, prominent enough to generate headlines, disconnected enough that those headlines increasingly tell a story of narrowing options. The Spencers were supposed to be the constant, the human side of his identity, the Diana side. Charles Spencer stood at Westminster Westminster Abbey in 1997 and made a public commitment to protect Diana's sons. What Charles appears to believe now is that he is still honoring it. By refusing to hand Diana's private archives to a commercial streaming project, he is making a judgment about the direction his nephew's life has taken. It is a harder, more painful form of care than simply going along with things. Harry has no clean way to respond. Pushing back against his uncle means pushing back against his mother's family. Defending the project means defending the Paris dossier framing in public. Staying silent means absorbing the verdict without contest. Every available position carries a cost. Royal watchers have noted quietly that William and the Spencer family now appear to be in alignment on the question of Diana's memory and how it should be treated. Two separate branches of Harry's family, the Windsors and the Spencers, have arrived at the same place. Charles Spencer left his honeymoon for his nephew's sake. That much is clear from the sourcing. Whether Harry is in any position to receive what his uncle was trying to give him is a harder question. But here is the dangerous part. If Harry walks away from this feeling rejected rather than protected, he has just closed the last door that was still open to him. And that door closing has consequences far beyond the family. A public family rejection of this nature does not stay contained. It moves through Hollywood quickly, and it attaches itself to every future conversation the Sussex team walks into. When the brother of Princess Diana signals that a project built around her sister is more about a celebrity than it is about Diana herself, that assessment becomes part of the public record. Every potential collaborator encounters it. The calculation those rooms make is straightforward. Does aligning with this person create reputational risk for us? The Spencer veto makes that calculation harder to answer in the Sussex favor. Netflix has lost what was supposed to be its 2027 guaranteed event. Without the Spencer endorsement, the Diana Anniversary series is just another unauthorized retrospective. The thing that was supposed to make it unmissable and legitimate is gone. As Ever is trading without its Netflix equity partner, selling products that have attracted sustained public mockery. The Sussex lifestyle operates at a cost level that requires consistent major media income to sustain. That pipeline is narrowing. The Spencer veto is a signal to every room they walk into that the Diana card has a guardian with the standing and willingness to use it. That guardian just made himself known, but underneath all of it, the Netflix deal, the dossier, the brand, the gates, there is a simpler story. A brother who made a promise over his sister's coffin and never stopped keeping it. 29 years later, he left his honeymoon to deliver a verdict to his nephew in person. Whatever else you make of his decision, it was consistent with that promise. Not the comfortable version of it, but the version that actually costs something. There is a piece of context worth sitting with. Charles Spencer was the person who introduced Diana to the journalist who later obtained the 1995 Panorama interview through forged documents and psychological manipulation of a vulnerable woman. He has lived with that for nearly 30 years. He knows from the inside what it looks like when a media machine identifies someone's pain as a commercial asset, knows it with a specificity that most people observing the situation from the outside simply do not have. When he reviewed the 2027 proposal, he recognized something familiar in its structure. He had seen it before, up close, and he knew where it led. He closed the gates. Diana's story has always had a guardian. In 2026, that guardian made himself visible. Whether Harry can find his way back to the people who have never stopped showing up for him, and whether his mother's legacy is finally genuinely safe, are the two questions this moment leaves open. If you keep finding your way back to this channel, it's because YouTube knows you want the real story, not the version being packaged for someone else's purposes. Hit subscribe so you never miss one.